Hey everybody, and welcome to the primary series in parts. In this course, basically, I'm going to break down the entire primary series, okay? It seems like students tend to get stuck on details that are pretty easy to move through once they have the information. So we're going to break down every pose and talk about external versus internal. Should my knee be here? Should my heel be here? We're going to break down all the poses so that way you can actually find a seamless and accessible way to move through the series. And if you are stuck on a pose in primary series, then we can actually help you get through it. So I hope that you enjoy this course. I'm not going to put too much emphasis on the breath count or the actual the Sanskrit counts, because I want to really make this about finding what you need in your body as you move through the series. The breath count you can certainly find online once you integrate all the parts, okay? All right, everybody, so now we're going to actually break down the series. I have a course on sun salutations, so I'm not going to go over that in this course. Assuming we've done our 5As and our 5Bs, we're just going to move on to the series, okay? So we'll start with Padangusthasana and Padahastasana, okay? So a few things I'd like to point out is that I've practiced 19 years. So when I started, Guruji was the one who held the lineage. Now we have Shrat in charge. And there have been some changes, some subtle changes to the primary series and the second series in that transition, okay? So the way that I was originally taught primary series isn't the way it's taught now. And the only way you'd even know that difference is if you had been around. So what I decided to do for this course was actually include the original way I was taught and the way it's taught now, so that you have an option. Now granted, if you're in a teacher's room and they have a very specific way that they want you to do primary series, by all means honor that teacher and follow their cue. But for your own personal practice, if you want to, explore that gray area a little bit, then this course is what is designed for you to do, just that. So we'll start with Padangusthasana and Padahastasana, all right? So we finished our sun salutations, and a couple of things. So first of all, I was originally taught to put the hands on the hips and jump the feet open. These days, it's more arms by the side, and then you jump open. Now you don't have to jump. You can actually just step, okay? So those are two things I'd like to point out. The first one is hands on the hips versus arms by the side. One's not right, one's not wrong, personal preference. Whether you step your feet or jump your feet, again, is personal preference, all right? Experiment with your body and your practice and see what you prefer. All right, these days, I usually have my hands by my side. I jump my feet open, right? And I've seen stances that are super narrow, and I've seen like more outer hip. So I actually do outer hip because of where I want to get the stretch, okay? I don't do a narrow stance because these days I don't get much out of it. So if you're doing this pose and you're not getting much out of the position with a narrow stance, maybe you want to go outer hip instead, okay? So that's another thing you can play with in this position. Tight hamstrings, right? I am not of the belief system that we try to straighten our legs and take our roots away, right? So like if I couldn't reach, I wouldn't just hang here. I would bend and find the catch, okay? So keep that in mind. If you're tight in your back body, you're gonna wanna bend those knees so that when you get your fingers to your big toes, okay? Well, we're in the pose, we grab the toes, and from here, one thing that students don't often do, if you can get in tune with your body enough, pull your sacrum in and your pelvis in, and like try to almost scoop a little bit. So instead of being here, right, we're gonna be here. We're gonna create a slight rounding just within the pelvic area. This is for the purpose of your bandhas, okay? I even had a really old school teacher say to me once, the reason that we put our hands on our hips is to remind us to pull the pelvic area in and to work those bandhas, okay? So a lot of these subtle movements that seem like they have no purpose, sometimes they do. Like sometimes it's to get the bandha action, or to find your midline, or to create an energetic lock. So, you know, I'll point out as much of that as I possibly can from my personal experience. But yeah, in this situation, when you go to fold forward, we're going to try and pull up from our bandhas, and then we pull our head down, taking the face towards the legs, and then our drishti is towards our nose, okay? Arms are out to the sides here, okay? They're not back, they're not forward, they're just right out to the sides, okay? One thing a lot of students forget, after your 5th breath, you're gonna inhale, and you're gonna exhale here completely. Then on the inhale, you're gonna go into Padahusthasana, okay? Pause for a full inhale and exhale there. And then you're gonna come into Padahusthasana on the exhale. Arms come forward this time, right? So they're not to the side, they're not back, they come forward. We round the entire spine, okay? And again, the focus is on the nose, the drishti is to the nose, okay? We exhale here completely. When we come out, arms to the sides or to the hips, step or jump the feet together, okay? So you decide what feels best for those two, Padahusthasana and Padangusthasana, what you prefer, what works for you, and go from there. And now we'll move on to Trikonasana. All right, so for Trikonasana and Parivrtta Trikonasana, we have just finished, okay? We're standing at the front of our mat, right? Now again, I was actually taught to bring the hands out to the side, but the new school way of doing it is to just step out to the side. Either way is fine, old school, new school, all right? Beyond that, we can step or we can jump, okay? Either is fine. Now, some people like a really wide stance. On this one, I used to, I prefer narrow now. So to each his own. So you can go narrow, you can step or jump wide, or you can step or jump narrow. I find that narrow helps with the bandhas. So if you're trying to find that inner lock, then it's easier if you're more narrow, okay? So we're at the front of our mat, right? And we move into position, okay? Then you bring the foot out, right? And you can come into your Trikonasana, right? So according to tradition, it's really important that you catch your toe, all right? Very rarely are they gonna want to make an exception. A certified, authorized teacher, Shrat, whoever, is gonna make an exception to not do that. In fact, I don't even know that Shrat wouldn't do that or would do that. So you always wanna go for the toe, all right? If you can't do that though, in your own personal practice, I don't recommend you put the weight on your leg, right? I recommend that you either put the hand inside or outside or on a block, okay? So 5 breaths would be there, right? You catch your toe, arm goes up, gazes to the hand, right? Coming out, push through your feet, okay? A lot of people lose their balance here. Push down to come up, okay? Arms are out to the side. We switch sides and we move right in. A note here that I'd like to make is try to omit as much fidgeting as you can. So try not to readjust your stance constantly. Once you've kind of landed in your roots, try to stick with them, right? So we go into the other side, 5 breaths, all right? We come out. Without a lot of movement, we minimize our movement, right? We move right in to twisted triangle or Parivrtta Trikonasana, okay? Now, this is a tricky one because of balance. Again, I do not recommend that you put your hand on your frame because then you have to stabilize that as well. So if you cannot twist, put your hand inside, above, or on a block, but do not put your hand here. It's really hard to find your roots and to get your foundation if your hand is not on the ground somewhere, okay? So hand comes down, arm comes up, gaze comes up, right? Then we come out. Now it's the same thing. We're going to push down through our roots to come out. Switch sides. Minimal foot movement. And we switch. Other side. 5 breaths. And then we come out. Hands to the side. Step forward. And again. Here. Here, 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 or here, here. Okay? Unless your teacher has a very specific way they want you to do it, don't get caught up in those details. Just find a way that works for you. Or if you're bored and you want to change it up, then you can find another way. All right? So now we'll move on to side angle. All right, Utthita Parsvakonasana, all right, extended side angle. So a lot of people struggle with the twisted version of this, so we'll talk about that, all right? Very similar to Trikonasana, right? We start here and we step out, or we jump out. Okay, you're gonna need a wider stance for this because it is a side angle. So your arms can be here, here, or here, okay? And then you're going to bend that right leg. You're going to turn it out and then bend into that knee, okay? Now, don't get obsessed over like a 90-degree angle, all right? Like, go where your body needs to go. Make sure you're rooting through your heel. Lean into it. Keep the back foot stable. You don't want it to come off the ground, okay? Lean forward. This hand, the right hand, is going to come down to the outside, okay? You want the heel of the hand down. You don't want to reach with your fingertips. You want the whole hand down so you can actually use it to push and extend through the base, right? Your palm here. So we lean, we lunge, place the hand. This arm comes up and over. Our gaze goes towards the hand. Now from here, we kind of want to create a little opposition. So as this leg is going back, the angle part, the arm that's coming up and over, is kind of in resistance to that, right? So you're lengthening out the side body, put through your root. So the leg goes back, and then you try to resist the root almost, creating a stretch through here, okay? Then we come out. If you cannot reach the floor, please put your elbow here, but dangling the arm is going to create more tension than you need. So you want to rest into your root and work from it versus trying to balance mid-air, okay? Other side, pivot the foot in, switch the other foot out, same thing. We're going to lean, we're going to lunge, hand comes down, strong roots, arm comes up and over, 5 breaths, again, back leg is strong, we just push through our foundation and extend the arm long, okay? To come out, we push through our roots to come out. Pivot the foot like we did the first time. So the left foot turns in, right foot turns out. Now we're going to twist. People hate this part, all right? If you cannot automatically twist into the pose and bring your hands down, which is really awkward and uncomfortable, please, when you're on your own mats in your own time, give yourself permission to bring the knee down, lunge forward, take the highest point of the arm that you can to the outer part of the leg. Twist from your waist. Do not twist from your thoracic, twist from the waist. Bring the arm to the outside of the leg. Make sure that palm is flat on the ground. Lean forward, okay, bring the weight forward. And then bring the back foot down. arm up and over. Okay? To come out, bring the arm back, stabilize, push through your front leg, out. All right? Other side, again, if you cannot go straight in, you're going to drop the knee, lunge forward, twist from your waist, bring the knee to the top part of your arm, bring the hand down, palm is flat. Push into that front leg, lean forward, back foot down, twist, arm, and gaze. 5 breaths, each part. Push down through the foot to push you out, and back to center. Okay? Utthita Parsvakonasana. Prasarita Padottanasana A, B, C, and D. So questions start to get, triggered here by students, is this right, is this right, should I have this, should I have that? Let's just try and figure out maybe what works best for you, right? Okay, so just like the other standing poses, we start at the front of the mat, okay? You can jump or step out to the side, okay? Your arms can be here, or here, or here, doesn't matter. So, Prasarita Padottanasana A, right? The hands would come to the waist. You're going to want to ideally kind of go as wide as, because I've seen really, really wide and I've seen really, really narrow. I've done it all. What I have found and what I usually teach actually is that, why are we doing this, right? We're going for length, right? We're lengthening out our spine. So if you're so wide, right, that when you come down, your head is crunching on the ground, then you want to come in a little bit, okay? And if you're so narrow that you maybe don't feel like you're getting where you need to go, then you want to go a little bit wider. So, the stance is totally going to vary depending on your body and your needs. I like to go as wide as I can and then try and find length with the crown of my head. That's my personal goal, okay? Prasarita A, hands come to the waist. We lift the chest, right? We create a little bit of a Maha Mudra here. And we inhale, and on the exhale, we come forward, right? Hands come flat to the ground. Now they're going to be slightly behind the feet, okay? You're going to lift the chest, keep the hands flat, and then exhale down, okay? Again, try to create a nice little space here so that you can actually create more length for yourself. Don't be so close that you're crunching, okay? Because that kind of defeats the purpose. So we're going to push through our hands, push through our feet, engage the legs, and then pull the torso down, all right? And then we have 5 breaths here. Now, you don't want the arms to be out, right? You don't want them to be kind of lazy. You want them to be firmly planted. So that way when you push, you're kind of engaging, right, the shoulders. There's activation there, okay? Pull the head down. To release, we lift the chin. We take the chest up. Hands come to the waist. All right, we exhale here. Inhale. Arms out to the side, back to the waist. Inhale, and then you don't have to look all the way up. That's another thing that has changed over the years. You can keep the gaze here or you can gaze up. Personal preference, really, depending on all the different teachers I've had. But then you exhale down. You're going to keep your hands on the waist. Now, hand positioning, I've always done to where my thumbs are here on my hips and my fingers kind of come in, okay? I've seen people do like this, and I've seen, other things, but for me, I like to keep my hands to where my fingertips can kind of hang on to my hip bones, and then my thumbs are behind so that I'm reminding my body what direction we're going. And exhale down. Now here, we're not really doing anything super extreme with the elbows as far as I know.
So you really just kind of want to play with bringing the head down, right? It's more about the torso than it is about the elbows. I've had teachers say to me, bring the elbows back, but very rarely. So, you know, if that's something you want to play with it. Otherwise, you know, out to the side is perfectly acceptable too, okay?
Inhale up, exhale, pause. Inhale the arms out, and then you're gonna clasp behind the back. Okay, now here's another one if people get tripped up. Do you want the palms together? Do you want the palms open? You know, are we gonna flip the palms? All of that's gonna totally depend on where you're at in your practice, okay? The way that I teach it is in steps. So like if you are so tight, right, that you can't do this and bring your arms up and over, then what I do is I teach an open palm. And then once you can get your arms up and over, then you try and close it, okay? And then we try to go for the ground. But it's really gonna depend on you. And I don't recommend flipping until you can get your hands to the ground. Not that you can't do it, it's just you want to try and work foundational and up, right? Like this is a more advanced move, so it requires a deeper rotation in the shoulders. So you might want to master the more basic rotation before you go and flip your arms, okay? That's all. It's not right or wrong, it's just working in a way that is efficient for your body, okay? So our hands are clasped, right? Now this is a really good opportunity for students to kind of find that micro bend in their knees, because what we're going to do is we're going to pull the arms up and over. And as a result of this, sometimes students lose their balance. So what I tell people is take your hips back as you take your arms up and over, all right? Try not to move the shoulders out or the arms out of the shoulder, but you know, try to bring them down and in line and in with the torso, right? So instead of it being kind of back and out, it's more in the girdle and down. All right, so we are going to go into Prasarita C. I'm going to push through my feet, find my roots, really engage and pull up on my quads here. All right, micro bend, so that way as I pull my hips back, my arms come up and over, okay? And from here, right, I like to actually use my head as a little bit of leverage, and then I bring the hands down, okay? If this is easy, then you can go for the flip, all right? But until you get this, I wouldn't worry about this, all right? 5 breaths here, all right? As far as you can. Find your roots, push through your feet to come out, all right? And then we bring the hands to the waist. Now this is where students get tripped up. Why we don't take our arms to the side between C and D, I've never gotten an answer on, but we don't, okay? We just keep our hands on the waist between C and D. After you finish your exhale, inhale, lift your chest, right? Exhale forward, grab the toes. Inhale, extend, find your bandha, bring the head down, elbows to the sides, okay? Not too far forward, not too far back, just right in the middle, okay? You're gonna pull down after you've like really engaged your legs through the root. And then we release. We bring our hands back to center, whether they're here or here, right? Or to the side. And we step to the front. Okay? A word about foot position. It's really kind of important for how you're going to work the pose. So if your feet are turned out, that'll change the direction at which you get a stretch. And that'll change your ability to ground. Parallel's good, but you might, for the purpose of really learning how to root and find this action, this opposition, you might want to pigeon toe just a degree, okay? You don't have to, but it's another way to play with your foundation so you can get what you need. For Prasarita Padottanasana A, B, C, and D, your drishti is going to be at your nose for all of them. Parsvottanasana. All right. So here is a pose that actually, when I was originally taught the sequence, I was taught very differently than the way that most practitioners do it today. Okay, so I was taught that you come from Samastitihi, right? And you step out to the side first, and then you bring the hands behind the back, okay? And then from here, you rotate into position. But the way that it's being taught more now, right, Samastitihi, and then while we go all the way into the pose, we take the hands behind the back, okay? What's right, what's wrong? I guess it depends on who you're in front of. Personally, I like to take my time with this because I have a very bad right shoulder naturally. It's just been tighter than the other side. So I need to actually assist myself in bringing the hand back. But whether you decide to come into it all in one breath, or you step to the side and then come into it, you know, if you want to take that extra breath on your own, that's totally fine. Now, foot position here, right? We can go really narrow, which is very hard on your hips and your knees, by the way. Or you can take the heel and create more distance between the back heel. Does the foot have to be facing forward? Does it have to be facing the side? You know, again, that's going to depend on who your teacher is and how they want you to do it, okay? I have it about 45 degrees. I have a wide stance typically because I like neutrality in my hips, right? From here, we're going to lift our sternum and exhale forward onto the leg. Ultimately, we gaze to the big toe and we take the chin to the shin, okay? Come out, we inhale up, switch sides, minimal foot movement, and we move to the other side. 5 breaths. Again, push through the heels, inhale up. Now, you can step to the front of the mat, or like I was originally taught when I learned, you can come back to neutral here and then step to the front of the mat, okay? I believe that Sharat does it the first way I showed you. But if you have a bad shoulder like me or something and you need that extra breath, that was the original way that I was taught, Purvottanasana. Okay, now we're going to move on to Utthita Parsvakonasana. Okay, now traditionally, if you're going to move into intermediate, advanced A or B, Parsvottanasana is where you would stop and then you'd go into your sequence, okay, or your series. So, but in primary, we move on with standing. So here we go. All right. Now we're at the front of our mat here, okay, and we're going to start by balancing on the left foot. All right, so the left foot is going to take the weight. All right, get comfortable there. We're going to catch the big toe. Not the knee, the big toe. If you absolutely cannot catch the big toe, go for the knee, okay? But you're going to try and catch the big toe. This might be as far as you can go, okay? But ultimately, we're going to straighten it out, okay? Now, we're going to go for the leg to the head more than the head to the leg. In Bikram, they take the head to the leg, but we bring the leg to the head, okay? So, in this position, we're going to go for the chin if we can, all right? 5 breaths there. Then we release it, and we take it to the side. Now, this is where students get tripped up, and this is where I think it's important to talk a little bit about internal versus external. So, once we release and we go to the side, the whole thing, excuse my balance, the whole thing is we don't want to be tweaking and going this way, right? So we don't want to bring the hip up. We want to keep the hip in line. And how do we do that? By keeping the joint in its socket. So our butt's not going this way, our butt's not going this way, right? We want to keep the pelvis neutral and the joint in its socket and move from the joint. That requires kind of like an external rotation on this part of the leg, right? So the knee is kind of going to go backwards a little bit. So we don't want to take the hip with us, right? We shift to the side. Try to angle the knee out, right? So that way we're moving from the joint, right? See that leg rotation? And then up, okay? Because otherwise, if we just straight move, stuff like this happens, you know, and we're tweaking, okay? And from this position, what happens is we want to go for height and length without cocking the hip here. So it's to the side, right? And you can go as high as you want as long as you don't take the hip with you. It's kind of the rule of thumb there, all right? You bring it, the drishti goes to the left shoulder when you're here, okay? Then we bring it back to center, one breath, and then we exhale here, all right? You're going to kind of point or floint. You're not going to flex. Point or floint, okay? And then you release the leg down. And then you would do the other side, okay? So again, we're going to balance on the right leg, catch the toe. If you have the mobility, you're on the right leg, bring the leg up, okay? The leg comes to you more, then you come to the leg. You're going to need it the rest of the way, okay? So you bring it as high as you can, and then you make contact. Chin comes to the shin. 5 breaths there, release. Out to the side, again. Now we want to try and go for that height again without taking the hip. So we're going to keep the ball in its socket. Keep the ball in its socket here, right? In the joint, lift from the joint, keeping the pelvis neutral, gaze to the right, release, forward, 1 breath, release, 5 breaths, and down, okay? And in between, hands on your hips, hands to your sides, personal preference. Utthita, Hasta, Padangusthasana. Ardha Baddha, Padmottanasana. Okay, so another balancing position. So we're going to start bouncing on the left leg. The right foot's going to come up to half lotus. A couple of things that I see often, right? People who have knee issues, don't take your knee out this way and puff your hip. Pull the pelvis back and then bring the knee more narrow, okay? The pelvis moving backwards will help to keep the knee protected by pulling it into an internal rotation. If you go for the foot, I see this so often, people chase their foot and they can never reach it, okay? Don't do that. When you bring your foot up, you want to try and bring it as high as you can onto the waist. Don't worry about the knee being perfectly like pointed down. You don't want to hurt yourself getting into position. When you go to reach for it, bring the knee in to find the clasp and then reset. But if you, again, and I see this all the time, people bring the foot here, their knee is super wide, and they're like stretching to grasp. Okay, it's not that difficult to just change the position of the foot, and then it's right there, okay? So that's the first thing, all right? Once you have that position, your hand doesn't go up, your hand just goes straight to the floor, all right? Head down. You want to actually try to take your forehead to the shin, and then your gaze is to the belly, all right? 5 breaths here. To come out, we're going to micro bend, push through the foot, and then straighten up, okay? And your release, okay? Other side. Again, if you have knee issues, do not take an external rotation. Do not puff your hips wide to get in. The more you bring the pelvis forward, the more you aggravate your knee. Pull the hip back. Okay, so create this position. Another way to look at it, not this. We want this. Because this automatically is going to help pull the leg into position. This, we're kind of working against ourselves. Okay, so pull the hips back, pull the pelvis under, bring the knee in and the foot up. Do not chase the foot. It seems so simple, and yet I see students do that constantly. Don't chase your foot. Bring the foot to you, all right? So now we're going to move our hands straight down, palm on the ground. Yes, fingertips are somewhat in line with the toes, and if you can, you bring your forehead to the shin. Gaze is to the navel. 5 breaths, all right? Then you exhale here, and you micro bend to push up and release, okay? And that's Ardha Baddha Padmottanasana. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Utkatasana, which requires a transition, okay? So you're at the front of the mat, right? You're going to bring your arms up on the inhale, gaze through your thumbs, exhale down, hands are flat. Inhale, extend with palms on the ground, right? Here we're going to jump back to Chaturanga, okay, Chaturanga. Inhale on the upward dog. Exhale, downward dog. And then from here we're going to jump into Utkatasana, okay? So you just jump straight forward, feet together, exhale completely. And then on the inhale, you're going to bring your arms up. Palms are going to be facing in together. Gaze towards your thumbs. And you're going to be here 5 breaths. Now, in this Utkatasana, you have some flexibility, some gray area. You can go really shallow with your bend, or you can go really deep with your bend. I've seen both. It's personal preference. If you want your head to be only slightly angled toward the thumbs, or really deep back bend is up to you. Again, that's going to depend on you and your teacher, okay? So whatever you want to do there is fine. Now, the original way that I was taught this sequence, this little piece here, this vinyasa, was that from Utkatasana, you straighten and then you fold forward and move through the vinyasa. That's a big change that's been made, and I believe that Sharat's been pretty adamant about honoring that change specifically, okay? The new way to do it is that you're from Utkatasana, you're going to maintain the bend in the legs, and you're just going to bring the hands flat, and from here, we jump back, okay? And then we come to up dog, downward dog, okay? So remember that it doesn't have to be anything fancy, right? Our hands are here, we're in Utkatasana, we're getting ready to transition. The legs stay bent, the hands come down, make sure they're firm, push, and jump back, Chaturanga. Okay? And we'll move on to Virabhadrasana A and B. Okay, so after you've done your transition from Utkatasana, you will find yourself in downward facing dog. From here, you're going to pivot the left foot, make sure it's rooted, and step right foot forward, okay? Just step. Don't worry about where you land, just step, lean, bring your hands up, and come into Virabhadrasana. Now, the gaze is at the thumbs. So here's the thing, if you cannot comfortably bring your head back to gaze, take your hands kind of forward. There's no reason to tweak your neck when you can adjust the hand position slightly, okay? We don't have to go for perfection here. We just need to try and find a comfortable way to bring the arms up and to gaze, all right? So we're here for 5 breaths. Then we're gonna straighten the right leg, move it in, pivot the left foot, lunge, lean, and then hands up, gaze up, 5 breaths. All right? Pushing down to find that lift from the inner body. All right? After your 5th breath, you're going to transition into warrior 2. You really don't have to do a lot of stuff to the body. All you have to do is change the arm position, really, okay? Don't obsess over the foot positions. You can do heel to heel, heel to arch, but really, it's not important, okay? We're just trying to maintain fluid movement, okay? 5 breaths here. Then straighten the left, bring the foot in. Other side, right, lean, and now warrior 2 on the right, okay? You can go super wide, super deep, super short. All of these are totally up to you. I have seen 101 ways to do different poses, okay? So whatever you want to get out of it, make those accommodations, but know that in the transition process, you don't have to perfect heel to heel, heel to arch, all that stuff. That's all a distraction. Chuck it, try not to obsess over it. Find a still, calm place for yourself, okay? So then, we're gonna transition out. Now, I was originally taught to just place the hands, right, around the foot, and then to move back, move through the vinyasa, right, and downward dog. But there's been some changes, okay, if you want to incorporate that. And by the way, I don't do the new school changes, so you know. I can, but I don't really care. So if you want to know my way, that's my way. I like the old school way. I like to just come out. But the new school way is to kick up into like a half handstand, right? So if that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. So we're in warrior 2, okay? Now this is going to, be a little bit complicated in the beginning. And you're kind of going to cartwheel into it. So you're going to lean forward, land. When you land, kick the back foot up, and then come down. Don't overcomplicate it. Just think cartwheel, right? So we're going to just come down, land, lean, push off, land. All right, so that's the other version that you can do. From downward dog, we jump through, and we begin the seated sequence. Okay, so we've made it to the floor. First pose of the seated positions are actually Dandasana, okay, staff pose. And I want to highlight this pose a little bit because I think we can easily become unconscious when we get to this, right? We just kind of move through it and we go forward into our Paschimottanasana. But Dandasana is actually like a blueprint position. Every time you jump through from a vinyasa to a seated position, you want to find your Dandasana. You want to exhale here and really become present before you move into any other asana, okay? So it's really kind of a nice staple position. In fact, it's something that you're going to carry with you in intermediate, in advanced A, and advanced B. So don't be lazy in Dandasana. Find your presence, right? Move with purpose. So in Dandasana, our legs are straight, our feet are flexed, our hands are by our hips. Now you want the heel of the hand to push into the floor. A lot of times students, what they do is they round here and they crunch the shoulders. We don't want that. Dandasana, right? The lift comes from the sternum. So we're going to push the heel of the hand into the floor. We're going to bring the chest up, that sternum up, and then the chin into the chest. So there's opposition happening here. Our hands are going to push down, and we're going to pull our shoulder blades down our back. And at the same time, we're going to find purpose. We're going to find presence and we're going to lift that sternum. Chin locks, okay? Great place to practice your Jalandhara Bandha, okay? So 5 breaths here, okay? Then we move into Paschimottanasana, A and B, or A, B, and C, or A, B, C, and D, okay? Depending on when and who taught you. So, new school version is Paschimottanasana A and B, right? So we go for the toes, inhale, find your lift, exhale down. Anytime you're in Paschimottanasana or a forward fold, we don't want to round the back. We want to pull the heart through, okay? We want to have our sit bones solid, and we are lengthening from the base of the spine here forward, okay? Our gaze is actually to the toes, which is kind of uncomfortable. And honestly, I rarely do it. I prefer to kind of relax my head down, okay? But if you're gonna follow the rule is to the toes. So we're gonna clasp our big toe, come forward, elbows off the ground, all right? Now, you can engage your bandhas here. You should engage your bandhas, and you'll find more length. If your bandhas are relaxed and you're relaxed, then you're not gonna get as much length. But if we engage our bandhas, we find more length easily. Okay, B version for the new school is that we go for the wrist, okay? So you would do here, and then you would do here. Now, when I was taught, originally, I was taught A, B, and C. Some people still do this. Now, Lino Miele, okay, and his tribe, they do A, B, C, and D, okay? So if you want to incorporate those into your practice, you can. New school is just A and B. Personally, I still like to do the 3, so I'll do A, B, and C. But that's because that was my training. That's how I was taught to do it originally. So I still do, right? When you're coming out, you're going to exhale here completely. Wherever you're at, exhale here completely, okay? And then you're going to place your hands on the inhale, okay? Hands down, inhale, come up, exhale, jump back, okay? Now, this course is not how to master the pick up and jump back. That's another course. How you do your vinyasa, or if you do your vinyasas, is up to you. But after Paschimottanasana, you vinyasa. All right? And now we'll move on. Purvottanasana. Okay, so we jump through, right, from our downward dog position. And we always want to find Dandasana first. We complete that exhale here, then move into position. So in this pose, we bring the hands back. Not drastically, okay? Maybe like 6 inches behind the back. And then we want to create a firm base. Now, a lot of times people, they struggle with their feet to get kind of that inner part of the foot down. So what I have students do is start there, okay? So bend your knees slightly and then push your feet into the ground, okay? So you actually start with your base instead of trying to find your base after. Because a lot of times students, they lift up from here and then they try to root, okay? But instead, pull your feet in slightly, find your root, spread your toes, push through the inner foot, push down, and use that, okay, to come up. Now I'm over-exaggerating my own foot position. So, you know, if you have the length, push into your feet. So we're down first, and then we distribute the weight, okay? You want to push through the hands and then let the head come back. So the shoulders are open and push through the feet. The problem that people usually get is because they come up, they take all the weight into the upper body, there's nothing in the legs or the feet, and then they struggle to find strength when the whole upper body is taking all the weight, okay? So before you go anywhere, bring your hands back, find your foundation with your feet, push through, and then redistribute. Roll your thighs in. Roll your shoulders open. Roll your thighs in. Not this. This. Okay? And then you bring the butt down, and we pick up and we jump back. All right? So, especially if you're a tight guy, don't try to straighten if it means that your feet uproot. So, if you straighten and your feet do this, right, they kind of come off the floor, go back. Don't straighten until you can find that work in the inner foot and the inner leg, okay? Because you're never going to get it the other way, okay? And the other thing I notice a lot is students, they point into the ground and they create a gripping sensation. No, you want the ball of the foot down and the toes to be spread, okay? You want foundation. You're pushing the ground, you're not pulling the ground, okay? So you push down through the feet, opposition, push away, okay? It's not this pointing, gripping kind of thing that people do. You can do that, but I think what you'll find is that you're energetically not being very efficient and you're not getting the stretch that you want. You're overworking your upper body and you're not getting anywhere. So we push through the feet and then redistribute the weight. So it's not all in the upper body, right? My feet are strong, they're taking part of it. And then you lift the legs as a unit. Only straighten if you can keep the inner part of the leg together. Okay? On the inhale, hands go down again, and you pick up and jump back. All right, Ardha Padma Paschimottanasana, next pose. So I'm going to say this a lot when you exhale through Dandasana. Okay, so from here, right, we're going to go into the position. But maybe you can't do that just so easily, right? So how do we make it easy? All right, so just like when we were standing, okay, and I said if you have knee issues, you don't want to puff the pelvis forward, you want to take it back. Same rules apply here, right? So we're going to take our sit bones back, okay? And we're going to then keep the pelvis tilting this way, and then we're going to move the foot into position, all right? Take the knee towards the midline. Don't try to grab from here, right? Don't chase the foot like you were standing. Same exact rules are going to apply, but now we're in a seated position, okay? So we're from Dandasana. We're going to tilt our pelvis back, our chest forward, and we're going to bring the foot up, okay? Now, if you're tight, right, and you can't clasp, that's fine. Just go as far as you can, and then exhale forward, all right? If you can clasp, great. Go for the big toe and exhale forward. Always remember that if you end up with knee aggravations, you're not working your hips, all right? So I love the internal rotation because what that does is that takes so much pressure off the knee and it takes it right into the hip where we're trying to work it. So left side, same thing. We're going to pull our sit bones back as we move forward. The knee is going to move towards the midline. You really don't want it wide, and I'll tell you another reason why is because if you're working energetically, it's not efficient. Energetically is you always want to move towards the midline. You always want to work in line with your bandhas, pulling it in, okay? So after you do the right side, right, you're here, 5 breaths, exhale, release. Now there's many different ways you can release, and if you want to release you know, from here, you want to pick up from this position or whatever, that's fine. I've seen all different kinds of ways, and there's no right or wrong. But when you come through to a seated position to do the other side, again and again and again and again and again, in primary series especially, Dandasana, staff position, exhale completely, then move into position. Rotate your hips, bring the foot up, inhale, pulls you into the position, and exhale forward, okay? Have presence when you move in and out of your positions, so that way you don't get injury and you have more purpose in your practice, okay? So that's Ardha Baddha Padma Paschimottanasana.